أكبر الله أكبر حي على الصلاة الله أكبر.
All praise are due to Allah and the highest of honors to His holy and divine prophet Noble Ali. Being that this is my first time at the rostrum, I also want to honor our Moorish American standard, give honors to our Moorish American standard, the red flag with the green 5-pointed star in the center, representing the highest principles that are known to man, which is love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. I also want to acknowledge the United Mercantile Trading Banner, also known as the American flag. I'd like to give honors to all Moorish Americans, both past, present, and future, who strive to promote this Moorish divine and national movement by way of prophets, holy instructions, and divine laws. I also want to give honors to Temple Number 19, the Office of the Grand Governor, Lieutenant Grand Governor, the Sheik staff, the admin staff, and the mighty M19s that keep the peace. Last but certainly, I want to give honors to you, the ills and bays, and our visitors in the sacred groves, because when man honors man, he honors thy Father God, Allah. Islam? Islam. Once again, all praises are due to Allah for having us here on another holy day evening so that we may continue to build on things that make us better citizens and reason together. Islam? That was a wonderful presentation by our brother Yosef Anfield Ill. I came in on the tail end of it, but from what I heard, he was stressing or reiterating the importance of giving back the names that were given to you, or returning the names that were given back to you, and stating that under these names of Negro, Black, and Colored, we cannot thrive as a people, because once someone gives you your identity, you're already on the path of slavery. You're already a slave, because you did not take the opportunity or take advantage of the opportunity to define yourself. And that's the most important thing about any person that is on this plane of manifest. Any group of people, rather. The right and the freedom to define themselves and live peacefully amongst other people that have the right to define themselves. Islam?
Islam.
When we talk about this concept of being black, we all know the spiritual definition behind it. We know the human being, the man was born out of triple stage darkness, and so on and so forth. We know that black represents the law and the spirit of the woman and the spirit of man. We all know about the Native American deity Quetzalcoatl, that was known as the black bird, that was the highest representation of wisdom and spirituality of people, the Asiatic people or the indigenous people in these United States. We all understand that. We all know the degree of Amun-Ra, the Lord of the perfect black, representing that state of being reborn. We all understand that. But as the Honorable John Henrik Clarke says, black describes what you look like, not who you are. So if an elder, a scholar who was teaching the importance of nationality and unity amongst Asiatics understood that there was a meaning, there was importance of nationality, there was an importance of defining your social status in the place where you're domiciled, in the place where a group of you reside, so you will have proper representation. And don't get me wrong, the representation doesn't come from being recognized by the government in which you live. The representation comes by the power in which you have, and the power of unity, the power of the collective. Because you are able to reinforce how you define yourself. Being described as Negro, Black, and Colored puts you in the frame of mind of being a slave. Puts you in the frame of mind of not being able to fully do for yourself. Because you're defining yourself as property. You're defining yourself as that chair, that very chair that you sit on. That chair is black. You are not. You have olive tone. You have wavy to woolly hair. Your genealogy expands beyond this continent that we know of, Africa. So it's important that we identify ourselves. It's important that not only we identify ourselves, but we develop a standard from how other people would identify us, how other people treat us, and how we define ourselves. Do y'all understand what I'm saying? We're not just talking about calling ourselves a different name just for the sake of calling ourselves a different name. The idea of being a Moorish American, the idea of being Moorish, goes back to the very birth, to the existence of man himself. Regardless if you want to call the deity Amun-Ra, regardless if you want to call him Yahweh, regardless if you want to call him Thoth, and so on and so forth, if you want to call him the creator, he's the causeless cause and the rootless root from all things came. But if you're defining yourself by way of a human being that names you something, then you're saying that you're the creator of that you're the creation of that thing that named you. Meaning that you're still a slave. When we talk about this idea of being black, we have to understand that that is part of a cycle. Because we all know that from nothing comes everything. When we talk about this idea in the doctrine of the Moorish Science Temple of America, we talk about this idea of man being this perfect seed firmly planted. And being firmly planted in this stage of darkness where it can nurture. But the idea of it is that it doesn't stop there. It doesn't stop at darkness. Which in the darkness must eventually come to the light. So when we're talking about a group of people that's defining themselves as darkness, it's defining themselves as swarthy, it's defining themselves from the term that essentially means death. Because when we talk about the word black, it comes from the Latin word negro. I'm sorry, it comes from the Spanish word meaning negro, but comes from the Latin word of necro meaning death. So we're defining ourselves as somebody that's dead, not just in a mental state, but in a psychological state. Let's look at our people out there in the chaos of the world. They're doing the best that they can with what they have. But returning back to them a standard, holding them accountable, a way by which they will live that will raise themselves, that will raise their thoughts up. Because the thought is the cause of it all. So when you think better, you do better. And that's the most important thought. So if you get everybody in this group that says, okay, I want to have better schools for my children. Richmond Public Schools, pardon yourself, I'm from Richmond, Virginia. Atlanta Public Schools are doing the best that they can, but we know we can do better. We know that we can not only teach our people the standards, our children, the standards of math, science, but we can also teach them their history so they can know that it's valid. We can teach them how to operate around their own people. Do you know in today's society, most people don't know how to say hello, how you doing when you walk past someone? Because of whatever this inhibition is, whatever this doubt, this lack of trust, this not knowing who you are, then when I look at my fellow man and or my sister, that I'm looking at a reflection of myself, that I'm looking at Allah, that I'm looking at the Creator, that puts value. Being called black doesn't put value on you. Doesn't define the most that you are a part of Allah, that you are just as valuable as any other race and nationality in this world. And that's not to down anyone. That's called race pride. Because everybody else has it. And that race pride is emphasized, is galvanized rather, by determining your status, by reiterating and perpetuating your status. It's important that we begin to do for ourselves. It's important that we begin to invest in ourselves. The Moorish Science Temple of America is an institution that allows us to learn and develop our culture. Because it's so scattered right now, we have an identity crisis. We're this thing, we're that thing, we're everything but ourselves. Because we try to define, we attempt to define ourselves with what we do, but not who we are. Not knowing that there's a history that if we come together as a collective, regardless of what tribe you're from. If you say you're from Africa, then you're from Africa. If you say that you're already from America, you're from America. But the point is that we can come and we can reason and we can find what the commonality is versus what the difference is. And we can be a mighty force that can raise up and assure that no one harms us ever again. Not mentally, not physically, not spiritually. That we determine our own legacy. Our legacy for our children. Because that's ultimately what we do. We're leaving this for our children, for future generations, so that they may succeed and continue the legacy and so on and so forth. Because that's what other nationalities do. That's what other cultures do. But when you have no determination of who you are, when you're steadily being defined by someone else's description of you, by someone's ideal of who you are, as much as we try to pull the pieces, it's important that we start to think that way. If we're descendants of Africans born in America, descendants of Africans and indigenous people born in America, then let's act that way. Let's return the ideas and the thoughts of European psychology, because that's for them. That's their thought process. We have our own thought process that we need to develop, that we need to cultivate, that we need to form a foundation on, so we can know how to engage with each other. Islam? I want to read from chapter 27 in our Moorish Holy Quran. The holy unity of the rich and the poor. There is a parable in our Ibrahimic scriptures about the lion and the lamb, about the haves and the have-nots, and the purpose of the Moorish Science Temple of America, speaking or relative to that parable, is building an institution so that the lion and the lamb may lay together in peace. Because what we're looking at are different extremes. We're looking at different streams of thoughts. And when we think about these streams of thoughts, this concept has been going on since time immemorial. How many of us have a job, work for someone? Don't be ashamed. I have a job too. Inshallah, we'll be working for ourselves one day.
Inshallah.
Think about your relationship between you and your supervisor. Think about, and if you so happen to have a pretty decent relationship between you and your supervisor, think about or observe the relationship that others, your co-workers, have with your supervisors. Let's go out a little further. Think of the relationship that we have with our city officials, with the deacons of the church, with the pastors of the church, with the people that will be considered of the middle to the high class, and even yourself may be considered of that yoke. Think about the relationship of those with you and those that are quote unquote considered that are not as well off as yourself. Why am I talking about all these things? Because granted that there is order and there is a hierarchy, as a nation of people, no one should be in a position to where they're not thriving within a nation, within a group of people, within a people that share the same mindset. When we look at the institution of the Moorish Science Temple of America, it is an organization that's designed to raise everybody else's spirits, to raise their thoughts, to raise their spirits, and to put them in a position that they may thrive. I know I've mentioned that before prior to bringing up the next speaker, but I want to reiterate that. Because there is a misnomer about, inconsistent misnomer rather, about this institution, about what the purpose of this organization is called to do. This is not a social club for us to come in on a Friday, for us to wear pretty fly garbs, royal outfits, and say Islam. It is not for us to demonstrate the semblance of our foremothers and our forefathers. In the Moorish Science Temple of America, it is our duty, it is our charge to be our foremothers and our forefathers, without a doubt, a contradiction. Islam?
Islam.
So let me get into, well, and part of that is being responsible for each other. That is the idea of the lion and the lamb. The one to protect and the one to nurture. that cycle of relation, that relation that bindeth you to love and unity. Islam? So it reads, again, chapter 27 in the Moorish Holy Quran, instructions, the holy unity of the rich and the poor. And I'm only going to read a few of the instructions. Instruction 1, the man whom Allah hath given riches and blessed with a mind to employ them aright is peculiarly favored and highly distinguished. He looketh on his wealth with pleasure, because it affordeth him the means to do good. He protecteth the poor that are injured. He suffereth not the mighty to oppose the weak. He seeketh out objects of compassion. He inquireth into their wants. He relieveth them with judgment and without ostentation. Islam? He assisteth and rewardeth merit, and he encouraged the ingenuity, and liberally promoteth every useful design. He carrieth his own great works. His country is enriched, and the labor is employed. He formeth new schemes, and the arts receiveth improvement. He considers the superfluities of his table as belonging to the poor of his neighborhood, and he defraudeth them not. The benevolence of his mind is not checked by his fortune. He rejoiceth therefore the riches, and his joy is blameless. Islam, family? What is he saying? Simply put, it is his responsibility as a man of good wealth, as a man of good fortune, as a man with a learned mind, to extend that hand. We have signs and symbols of the Moorish Science Temple of America, and one of those signs and symbols is the hand press. And that hand press is a symbol of unity, but it's also a symbol of aiding and assisting those that are in need. We are bound to cords to every living thing. No man lives unto himself. He is bound to cords to every living thing. Therefore, it is your duty to be a friend of mankind. Islam? I'm going to read to you a few excerpts from our prophet describing the purpose of the Moorish Science Temple of America. And it says, the purpose and the goal of the Moorish movement were articulated by Noble Drew Ali in the September 14th, 1928 edition of his national weekly publication, The Moorish Guide, when he indicated that it was building, and it is referring to the Moorish Science Temple of America and this Moorish Divine and National Movement, building on human needs, to dispense charity and provide for the mutual assistance of its members in the times of distress, aid in the improvement of health, and encourage the ownership of better homes. And I want to stop right there. See, our prophet has stated, if you even think your condition can be better, then join the Moorish Science Temple of America and this Moorish Divine and National Movement. Right. But not a lot of us, and may Allah be pleased with us all, we may not have that direct notion on how to act. But that is the very reason why we come here and we reason together and we build on things that make us better citizens. See, there's a few phrases that I'm going to repeat throughout this measure because it's important that we have this ingrained in our head, that I hammer the truth. We cannot thrive without assisting one another. A single man is not successful, and he is definitely not flourishing when you have your brother or your sister that is your neighbor and beside you not living so well. if we are to assist our members in the time of distress, that means that we have to invest. We have to put finance. We have to put compassion into what we do in this Moorish Divine and National Movement, what we do in our communities. Because what we do in the Moorish Science Temple of America is a reflection on how we are to act in our own communities. Islam? If there's no one in this Moorish Divine and National, well, if there's no one in this temple and there's no one in their community that does not have employment, and you see that they're struggling, I remember back in the day, our parents used to hold rent parties.
That's right.
If they had to get a bill paid, they held bill parties. So I'm not going to sit here and make it seem as if our parents or our foremothers and our forefathers, our parents, our great-grandparents, etc., didn't have the potential of our forefathers. But it has to be guided, it has to be directed, it has to be cultivated. Because right now we're vibing off an impulse. We're developing, we're attempting to grow off an impulse. But there has to be a standard from which we can compare our actions. Because without that, how do we know whether or not we succeed? How do we know whether or not we have came to the point to where we can establish our own institution? We cannot do that alone. We have to do that as a collective. It goes on by saying, to find employment for members to teach those fundamental principles which are desired for our civilization, such as obedience to law, loyalty to government, tolerance, and unity. Now, that may pinch and sting some of us, even in this room. Because in our minds, this government institution, or this government rather, has failed us. They have not been able to compensate our needs. But I want to tell you something. I want to tell you a little secret. It's not their responsibility alone. It is the responsibility, it is a relationship between those that we put in office, those that we select to be in office, and those that live in the communities that are in distress. And if we are not satisfied with that public figure, then we respectively remove him from office, and then we put our own in office. Those that have our needs. See, again, going back to this idea is that we don't know where to start. We may have an inkling of an idea. But again, as the sister said, we come to this Moorish Science Temple of America to be reminded, because going out in the chaos of the world, we often tend to backslide. And there's nothing wrong with that. Truth, man is truth and false, so they're strangely mixed. But it's important that we check up on our brothers and our sisters to make sure that they continue on the Surat al-Mustaqim. That they continue on that straight path. That path of purity which leads to love. Islam? He further stated, we are friends and servants of humanity, as I just said. We are dedicated to the purpose of elevating the moral, social, and economic status of our people. That is the purpose of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Saying that we have a nationality isn't just something that we continue to reverberate and reiterate or to repeat just because it sounds good. That is the foundation of nationality. To elevate the moral, social, and economic status of our people as a collective. I'm going to use that word a lot while I'm on this roster. Collective, unity, togetherness, power, all of that good stuff. Reasoning. Each and every one of us in this room right now, whether we're sitting in, or whether we're on the rostrum, whether we're sitting in the groves, whether we're at the designated sheik's table, if you will, we all have a different demonstration in building and establishing our relationship with Allah. Somewhat. But I guarantee you, if we sit down and we talk and we discuss these similarities, we'll see that our purpose, our agenda is not that different. Islam? We have set about to do this through a worldwide and comprehensive program embodying the principles of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. That is the Moorish American principles. Those are the Moorish American principles. Those are the highest principles known to man, regardless of how you or what form of spirituality you study. You're going to see love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice in some shape or form, in some form of language. Islam? He goes on by saying that, Noble Ali rather, goes on by saying, we shall be secure in nothing until we have economic power. Let me repeat that. We shall be secure in nothing until we have economic power. A beggar people cannot develop the highest in them, nor can they attain to a genuine enjoyment of the spiritualities of life. I myself and the Sheik staff use this parable and this analogy quite often. How many of us have tried to meditate and tried to pray when we know that the rent is due the very next day? How many of us have tried to pray and meditate and to think positive thoughts, to develop on how we can better ourselves when bills are due, when we're robbing Peter to pay Paul? Being able, part of defining yourself is being able to support yourself. Again, if you have a people that define who you are, and they're put under, and they're the custodians of these people, then that's not freedom. It's not independence. That's slavery, and that's sin. So we in the Moorish Science Temple of America, we strive to promote economic and social power within our community, within the Asiatic community. There are things that come about by contribution of being involved in this Western society. There are things that come about within our people, such as depression, suicide, drug use, alcoholism. These are realities that we have to face. When we're talking about the cares of the world, we're not just talking about somebody's position. We're talking about a mental state. Because if they don't have any outlet or anyone to talk to and discuss, and someone to refocus that energy, then we'll be doomed. It'll be forever a vicious cycle. But in the Moorish Science Temple of America, in this Moorish Divine and National Movement, we are devoted, we are dedicated to uplifting our people, to raising them to the higher forms of life, so they may be able to think about future generations. Because that's what we're here for. We're here to lay and continue this foundation, or continue perpetuating the success of our own legacy. And we have not done that successfully. It's more than just leaving your children a 401k. It's about leaving them their estate. Their estate, something that they can look to with pride, to represent who they are. Islam? And he goes on by saying, finally, says, Noble Ali urged the Moorish Americans to brighten the hopes of our youth and to encourage the development of young peoples in the Moorish League, as well as the athletic clubs for children. Speaking about the Southside Boys Club and the Boys Club Foundation in Chicago, Noble Ali conveyed his fondness for youth and the concern for the development of human potential when he stated, it takes sympathy, patience, interest, and the trained eyes of men and women well versed in training and the handling of young women, of young children rather, to see the hidden beauty beneath the rough exterior. Remember, better boys, better children make better men, better women. We talk about becoming better citizens, but in order to be better citizens, we have to be better men. In order to be better citizens, we have to be better women. That way, we'll be able to instill those, to pass on the values that we have learned for ourselves onto our children. Islam? Better boys make better men, and better men make better husbands for our daughters, and vice versa. Noble Drew Ali, alayhi salam, may Allah be pleased with him, was a man with a vision. And it was through his vision, through his practice, that he was able to raise up a group of men and women that not just wanted to think their condition could be better, but were active and determined to make their condition better. And we in the Moorish Science Temple of America, we in this Moorish Divine and National Movement strive to continue this legacy to this very day. But we can't do it alone. We need your help. We need the assistance of each and every one who think their condition will be better, whether you're a member or a sympathizer. We all have the same purpose. We all fit into this cosmic scheme of things. Because if we continue down this path, we will continue to be abused by those that consider us less than. Islam, family? And I want to read this last passage again from our prophet. It's a very short article from the Moorish guy called Prophet Makes a Plea to the Nation, and then I'll yield the floor to our next speaker. Islam? Says, our divine and national movement stands on the specific grand principles of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. And I, the prophet, am applying to all loyal, faithful Moors, members, and the American citizens to help me in my great uplifting acts, uplifting fallen humanity among the Asiatic race and nation. For I have suffered much and severely in the past through misunderstanding of what the movement is dedicated to. It is the great God Allah alone that guides the destiny of this divine and national movement. I know all true American citizens, that's you, brother, that's you, sister. Or that's you, brother, that's you, sister, rather, are identified as national descent names to answer and apply to the free national constitution of this free national republic of the United States of America. This is why I'm calling on all true national citizens to help me morally and financially in my great work I am doing to help this national movement. For without a free national descent name, without a free national name, with a descent flag of your forefathers, there is not a national divine title of the government in which we live. This is from your true and divine prophet to all American and foreign sympathizers, Noble Drew Ali. Islam?
Islam.
Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Hayya ala salat.